You know, sometimes in life it's hard to see with clarity, and what we need are some glasses to help us see the word of truth so we know what to do. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. Hey everybody, welcome to the Vince Miller Show. So excited to have you here again. I want to encourage you, as always, remember, you should leave comments below, engage with the community, be praying for these studies together, be praying for your own life, maybe friends. Start to think about how you could take a series like this. We're in chapter 9 right now. So think about how you could take a series like this and maybe use it with a group of people or another friend or mentor them. As I have mentored you, you can mentor and disciple others. So remember, underneath this major theme of Ecclesiastes, we have wisdom literature from Solomon. And 38 times he mentions the word vanity, which is smoke, which is why we're still burning smoke here. And he says, all is vanity or smoke under the sun. So under the horizontal plane, and these terms are repeated, which give us the thesis for the book, which is the search for satisfaction in this life is like trying to grab after smoke, grabbing after things that we can't grab a hold of. And then once in a while, he conducts these tests. There's 17 of them in the book of Ecclesiastes. We are going to see two tests in chapter 9, test 14 and test 15. And first, we're going to look at the section in chapter 9, verses 1 through 10, the test of a life that matters, how to live a life that actually matters. And I think most of us would say we would like to live a life that matters. But Solomon is going to show us that he's lived in the vanity of a life that doesn't, and show us how to do this. This is a very optimistic test, by the way, of all the tests he conducts. And so today I'm going to show you four actions of a follower who lives a life that actually matters. Here's action number 1. Is chapter 9, verse 1. He says, "But all this I laid to heart, examining it all, how the righteous and the wise and their deeds are in the hand of God. Whether it is love or hate, man does not know. Both are before him." So what is Solomon talking about right here? He's talking about essentially surrendering our control to God, that he looks out and he sees this truth. And it's this, that the righteous and the wise and their deeds are in the hand of God, that they understand that God is in control of all things all the time. I don't know if you feel like this sometimes, but I do. You ever sit in traffic and wonder if you're ever going to get out of it? I can't tell you how many times I've sat in traffic and tried to figure out how I can get out of it. Can I move into another lane? Can I go a little faster over there? Can I get ahead? I can't tell you how many times, especially in the state of Florida, where I have a home, where I've watched this happen on the freeway. There's gridlock and people are trying to joust in and out of traffic, and they get no further than the man who just stays in one lane. It's always true. Test me on this. Here's a little movie clip for you from the introduction of Office Space. If you're an Office Space guy, you're going to love this one. This is that moment where Peter Gibbons, right at the beginning of the movie, is caught in traffic and he's trying to get somewhere. Just watch this for a second and tell me if you've ever felt this way. I don't know if you've ever felt like Peter Gibbons here, but I have felt just like that, not just in traffic, but in life. In life, you know, sometimes there are moments in life where we really genuinely do feel in control. And there's sometimes in life where we feel like we're walking hand in hand with God in control. And then there's times in life where we feel like life is out of control and we can't do anything to control it. In fact, everything we do to control it makes things worse. Case in point, Peter Gibbons. And regardless of what season that you're in, whether it's one where you feel like you're in control, one where you're stepping with God who's in control, or one that feels like you're completely out of control, you have to acknowledge that there is only one in control, and that is God. That is action number one. Learn to surrender control to God if you want to live a life that actually matters, because the only thing that matters is God's control, not yours. Action number two, live with the end in mind. Here's Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 2. It reads, "It is the same for all, since the same event happens to the righteous and the wicked, to the good and the evil, to the clean and to the unclean, to him who sacrifices and him who does not." What Solomon is saying here is that all of life is the same for all of us, and that we have to live with that end in mind. What does the end have for us? What happens at the end? So there's this woman, her name's Ruth. She's driving home. She's traveling the narrow passes of North Carolina. She comes across a sign. It says, "Under construction." She travels through construction for a number of miles, comes to the end of construction, sees a sign that reads, "End of construction. Thank you for your patience." So Ruth got home. She told her husband, Billy, the story. She's told him about the sign, and she said to her husband, "That's what I want inscribed on my headstone." And today, that is what Billy Graham inscribed on his wife, Ruth Graham's headstone. He lived 10 to 11 years after her, and you can visit her grave today, and it says right on the back of that headstone, "End of construction. Thank you for your patience." You know, it's funny, as we navigate life, we get caught up in all these little events that happen. That's exactly what Solomon's talking about here, that there's these events that happen to the righteous and the wicked, the good and the evil, the clean, the unclean, him who sacrifices and him who doesn't. And then there's the one who looks at the very end of life and works backwards from there. They see the signs, under construction, end of construction, and then they look at the end of life and say, here's how I want to live. And that's exactly what Ruth decided to do, to look at the end of life and determine from there, from that point backwards, how to live life. And she wanted to live a life that was constantly under construction, and she wanted the world to know it. What does that mean? What does that mean? Well, it means this, that you need to stop living life by accident. Don't live from incident to incident. Be intentional about how you live all of life. Too many people in this life live life accidentally. They live from moment to moment to moment to moment. And there's some truth in trusting God in the moment. But there is also truth with understanding that there is an end coming, that you have an end and so do I. And action number two is understanding that with that end in mind, we've got to work backwards from there. And the end that obviously Ruth is thinking about, that Solomon is thinking about here, is the end of our days. It is the same for all. It is the same for all. We will one day die and meet our Maker. So stop living life from accident to accident, from incident to incident. Start being intentional, but yet not controlling at the same time. Action number three is this: find joy in everyday blessings. Just find joy in everyday blessings. We talked about this in our last lesson, but I love these verses here in 7 and 8. He says, go eat your bread with joy. Eat your bread with joy. Drink your wine with a merry heart. That'll offend just about every Baptist out there. For God has already approved what you do. Let your garments be always white. Let not oil be lacking on your head. What is Solomon saying here? Solomon is a man who's tested everything. He's tested everything. He's tested food. He's tested drink. He's tested clean garments, oil on his head. He's tested it all. And he's saying this, that if you want to live a life that matters, you need to learn how to enjoy moment to moment the good things that God blesses you with. You know, one of the things I like is actually like dark chocolate. I got some dark chocolate here. I love dark chocolate. Who doesn't love chocolate? I mean, seriously. Every once in a while, I'll go to the store and I'll grab a chunk of dark chocolate just like this. I won't eat it all at once, but I'll take these little bites. I'll enjoy it. Savor it, taste it. You know what I'm talking about? It's like, like to savor it. Well, every once in a while, Solomon says that we should find that joy in everyday life. That stop complaining about all these irritations of life. There's plenty of things to complain about. You can turn on your sports team and your network news, social media, and it will fill your mind with complaints. Or you can turn your mind to the everyday things: bread, wine, clothing, oil on your head, the everyday enjoyments that God has given you today. Even if there's only one today, enjoy it. And here's what he's encouraging us to do is to find elements of joy. It's not to ignore kind of the complications of life or to ignore the moments where things are hard and to pretend like they don't exist. But when we find some joy, it brings joy to our life, and then we can taste of the riches that God has given us along the way. Action number four is this: work with excellence and purpose. Now, I love this part. This is chapter 9, verse 10. Just let this sink in for a second. He says, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with your might. Do it with your might, for there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol, that is the darkness, the place of the unknown, to which you are going. Do it with all your might. For there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol, the place of the unknown, to which you are going. You know, there are things in life that we should do with excellence. I mean, even as I make these videos with these guys, we think about how can we create them with excellence? How can I present content with excellence? How can we edit with excellence? Because guess what? Excellence is one of those things that matter in a life that matters. I was thinking about this week. Jesus did some things excellently in this life for which he stored up some treasures, right? We have these little treasures along the way that remind us of things that we did very, very well. Well, Jesus, I believe, had some of them. I believe Jesus had some carpenter tools from his youth, from work done excellently. Maybe he had a few well-built yokes from being a carpenter with his family as a young man. I know for sure he had a treasured stone that was dropped from the hecklers at the site of the woman caught in adultery, a stone that only he could cast. We know there were the nets of Peter and Andrew that were dropped that I could imagine Jesus gathering up and bringing with him in his storehouses. A robe and a tassel hung from his cloak that a bleeding woman touched. Coins from a fish's mouth, 5 loaves, 2 fish, a cup of cold water from a Samaritan woman, a broken alabaster jar, the widow's mite, the grave clothes of Lazarus, a towel from the Last Supper, a crossbeam that he carried to Golgotha, grave clothes from an empty grave, a crown of thorns, nails that hung him to a cross. Jesus had all these little moments where he behaved and acted and lived with excellence. Well, what are the treasures in your storehouse? What is the work that you have done and produced with excellence? Man, every day we should be thinking about the excellence that God has given us to do, that I think about how can I exegete God's word? How can I communicate it in a beautiful way? How can we edit and produce things with excellence, right, guys? How can we do that? And you should be thinking about that with your life too. How can you lead with excellence as a man, father, husband, leader? How can you lead with excellence as a mother, as a wife, as a woman, as a leader in your community? What does that look like for you? Well, think about it and then do it with excellence today. That is what Solomon's calling us to do. Four actions of a life that matters. Let me list them again real quickly. Surrender control to God. That's where it all begins. Then live with the end in mind. What's on your tombstone? That kind of thinking. Action 3, find joy in everyday blessings. Dark chocolate for me. You can send me dark chocolate. I'll love you for that. Still got it in the back of my mouth right now. Taste it. Oh, it's so good. I'll save some for later. Action number 4, work with excellence and with purpose. And these are the things that Solomon says matter in a life that matters. Just little tiny things along the way that we accumulate along the way for God's glory, not our own, for God's glory, not our own, that lead to a life that matters again. So that's test number 14. Now to test number 15 in the latter part of chapter 9, Solomon's going to conduct another test. This time it's a test of life when it's unpredictable, when life is unpredictable. And he's going to help us to gain focus. Every once in a while, life is unpredictable, isn't it? It throws you a curveball, something you didn't expect in your life. That happens to me quite often. And in those times, you need focus. And they're kind of like these glasses right here that I started wearing when I was probably about 43 or so. And it just continues to get worse for me, fellas. I don't know what happened, but my eyes got slower. The muscles grow weaker. So I've got these glasses that are all over my house now. Sometimes I can't find them, and most of the time they're right there on my head. But I put these on so that I can see, I can gain clarity. And that's exactly what's going to happen in this section of text today. Solomon's going to say, let me help you put on some glasses so that you can see with clarity what's happening when life is unpredictable for you. So 4 focuses for you when your life feels very unpredictable. Focus number 1 is this. You have to focus on what you can control. Verse 11 reads, again, I saw under the sun, under that horizontal plane, the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to the intelligent, nor favor to those with knowledge, but time and chance happen to all. Yeah, again, we come back to this kind of understanding that the outcomes of life that you want sometimes aren't always fair, that there's unpredictable things that happen that you can't predict. And success isn't solely tied to your effort or skill all the time, which is the point here. The race is not to the swift, the battle not always to the strong, the bread to the wise, the riches to the intelligent, favor to those with knowledge. Chance happens to them all, and chance happens because, things in this life don't work out like we always want them to. And in those moments, there are things that you can't control, but there is a couple of things you can. Number 1, you can control your attitude. And number 2, you can control your responses. That's about it. In life, when life is unpredictable, you need to put on the focus spectacles, spectacalities. You need to put on the focus on what you can control. And the only thing you can control is your attitude and your responses. That's it sometimes. That's it. Because you're not going to be able to make sense out of your gifts, your talents, your strength, the things that went wrong. You're going to look out at that last game and that last event, the last process, that last transaction, that last service. You're going to go, what in the living world happened here? And there's going to be no explanation for it. But what you need to do in that moment is put on your focus on your attitude and your responses in that moment, because guess what? That's the only thing that matters, because you couldn't control that. And God turned something upside down that you felt should have been right side up. Focus number 2 is this. You need to put on the spectacles of living with purpose. Live with purpose. Chapter 9, verse 12 says, for man does not know his time. Man does not know his time. Like fish that are taken in an evil net, like birds that are caught in a snare. So the children of man are snared at an evil time when it suddenly falls upon them. There's going to be something that happens to you in this life that you're not going to expect. I promise you, something is going to catch you completely off guard. Could be a death of a relative, a financial loss, the loss of a friendship, the loss of a marriage, the loss of a job. And guess what? You don't get to determine the time of those things. You hold those things loosely in the palm of your hand. And it is going to be unpredictable. But what you need to do in those moments is to continue to put on the glasses of living with purpose. You just have to seize the day in front of you. Carpe diem, as has been said timelessly throughout history, because you don't know your time. You just got to live with purpose in that moment. I mean, I don't know if leaving here today, I'm going to get hit by a bus. Again, I don't know why it's always by a bus. Why can't I get hit by a train or shot by a bullet? I want to dive in front of a bullet when I die. That's how I want to live. But anyway, between the time that I'm living and having breath right now to the moment that something like that happens, all I have is the moment in front of me, and I've just got to live with the purpose that God has intended me to live right now, right now. That means every single moment counts. And this doesn't mean being obsessive, compulsive about everything you do in life. It just means living on purpose in the moments that you have, because you don't know your lot. You don't know if there's an evil net coming or an evil snare or a time that's suddenly going to fall upon you. You just got to live with moment and seize the moment in front of you. Focus number 3. Pursue wisdom even when unnoticed. Pursue wisdom even when it goes unnoticed. Verses 15 through 16 of chapter 9 read, "Now there was found it in a poor wise man, and he by his wisdom delivered the city. Yet no one remembered that poor man. But I say that wisdom is better than might, though the poor man's wisdom is despised, and his words are not heard." I mean, there are going to be times in this life when wisdom is going to lead you and other people to freedom, and no one's going to notice it. No one is going to notice it. I always think of Joseph when I think of points like this. Joseph is sold into slavery by his own family. He is then imprisoned and kind of left for dead, essentially. He begins interpreting dreams, and he tells the person that he's interpreted dreams for to not forget him when his time comes and his freedom comes, and he is forgotten. Why does that happen? I don't know. Why does Joseph spend continued years in prison? I don't know. But I know this, the only thing you can focus on in that time is pursuing wisdom, even when it gets unnoticed. Now, we know in the end that Joseph's dream and interpretation of dreams came to fruition, and he was given power in the land to save not only the kingdom, but also his own family and many other lands. And what a blessing that was. But we don't trust in what eventually will happen. We trust in what is presently given to us. We just pursue the wisdom of the moment, even when it goes unnoticed. And sometimes you're not going to be praised, and you're not going to get accolades for the wisdom that you have and the wisdom that you've shared. Focus number 4, the quiet strength of wisdom. Focus number 4 is the quiet strength of wisdom. Verses 17 through 18. "The words of the wise heard in quiet are better than the shouting of a ruler among fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good." You know what wisdom doesn't do? It doesn't shout at a mic, singing and desiring praises. It's often a soft voice that wins. I love this little movie clip right here. I'm not going to set it up too much, but you know it. It's from Gladiator. It's that moment on the Colosseum floor when Commodus confronts Maximus. Listen to this moment.
What am I going to do with you? You simply won't die. Are we so different, you and I? You take life when you have to, as I do.
I have only one more life to take. Then it is done.
Then take it now.
Time for honoring yourself will soon be at an end. Highness.
I just want to listen to the music. The point is clear in this little clip, isn't it? Just but it's the way that he does that. It's the way that Maximus handles himself in that moment. He understands that everybody's watching and everybody's listening. They're listening in to his words as he proclaims, "The time to honor yourself will soon be at an end." And honestly, that whisper right there is powerful, isn't it? Sometimes we need to figure out how to lean in to these moments with quiet strength. With quiet strength. It's not always shouting into the mic that matters. Sometimes there's a quiet strength of wisdom that we all need in these very terse, intense moments. And if we can focus on that when life is unpredictable, then God will show us an outcome eventually that will allow us to win. That's exactly how Jesus approached the cross. We see this quiet strength in him as he is arrested, as he is flogged, as he is nailed, as he is heckled. And yet in the end, there's this glorious moment where God's strength is seen in the resurrection of Jesus Christ. There's only a couple of moments that capture this in the Bible, but for me in the Old Testament, it absolutely is David in the valley of Elah. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verses 45 through 47. David and Goliath have walked upon the battlefield like Commodus and Maximus here. And clearly Goliath is heckling and shouting at David. And then David makes this statement from the field of war that I'm sure everyone can hear, just like they heard in this movie scene. He says, "You come to me with a sword and a spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down, and I will cut off your head, and I will give the dead bodies of the host of the Philistines this day to the birds of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel." And right at that moment, I can imagine David pointing around the floor of this great event, pointing not only to his enemies, but to the Israelites, as he truly believes that God's going to show up through his quiet strength and his quiet faithfulness to deliver the nation of Israel. That is the way that we live in moments that are unpredictable. Quiet strength of wisdom when we don't know what stands before us at the next turn. Well, with that, today you have a number of lessons through a couple of profound tests. First, the test of a life that matters. Second, the test of a life that is unpredictable. And Solomon in this chapter just pours out this endless wisdom. What actions do you need to take? What tests do you need to be focusing on? And my prayer for you today is you'll take some action. There's so many points in this lesson and so much wisdom. Just find something that you can grab a hold of and something that you're going to do today. Carry that with you. And with that, let me pray. God, thank you so much for Solomon's wisdom, how he has used his wisdom to guide us through unpredictable times, through times when we feel challenged. God, I pray that you'll give us wisdom for these times. Help us to see what to focus on, what actions to take. And we trust that your wisdom, your strength will meet us where and when we need it most. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, don't forget, there are always questions below each one of these videos, 10 questions to help you dig in to our context today. I want to encourage you to use them. Use them as a way to go a little deeper in your faith. It's one thing to listen to our videos. It's a whole nother thing to take them to a personal level, to really embrace them. And some of you need to use these videos to disciple other people. Some of you people are wise in your faith. You're using these to grow in your own faith, but you need to take a step of faith to encourage other people to come along. So do that today. Encourage others to come along with you, to learn these lessons as well. Share your life, share your ministry, and as always, live all in for him who lived all in for you. One of the easiest ways to partner with us is becoming a member of this channel. Will you join us today as we share the gospel to millions of people right here?